Doing that.
Oh, Mary, thank you, Mary. Welcome, everyone. This is María Luisa Arroyo, New England Poetry Club Advisory Board member, hailing from Springfield, Massachusetts. I, for one, am thoroughly enjoying the plethora of events during National Poetry Month. Today, I have the joy to host this month's new poetry reading and open mic. We have 3 New England Poetry Club members with new books, and we do have an open mic afterward. If you wish to sign up for the open mic, please send Linda Conte a message in the chat. One poem, please, during the open mic. And as a reminder, if you wish not to be recorded, please turn off your video as well. I have the joy of introducing Kelly DuMar. She's a poet, playwright, and workshop facilitator who is the author of 3 poetry collections, Girl and Tree Bark, All These Cures, and Tree of the Apple. Her plays are published by dramatic publishers, and her poems, prose, and photos are published in many literary journals, including Bellevue Literary Review, Tupelo Quarterly, Crab Fat, Storm Cellar, Corium, and Tiferet. Kelly serves on the board of the International Women's Writing Guild and produces the bi-monthly open mic writer series attended by women worldwide. Kelly founded and leads the Farm Pond Writers Collective, now in its 5th year, and facilitates a variety of creative writing workshops in person and online. She blogs nature photos and creative writing at kellydumar.com/blog. And what I will do is I'll put in the chat purchasing information for her book. Please welcome Kelly.
Thank you so much, Maria Luisa, and also to everyone here at New England Poetry and all of you listeners for coming today. I'm honored to be invited to read and a little startled and intimidated to go first, but I'm going to really look forward to this reading. So, you know, I was thinking this morning about selecting the poems. I'm one of those preparers, and I thought about what do I want to read today? And I tried to come up with a framework for what poems I wanted to select, not just because my book isn't so new anymore, but it is new, about a year old, but because I wanted to read a selection from a variety of things I've written. So I came across this wonderful quote by the poet Louise Bogan. And she writes, poets traditionally, historically, were those who asked basic. I wonder if everybody's muted or if they could be. Thank you. Poets traditionally, historically, were those who asked basic and unanswerable questions. Who are we? Why do we live? Do we die forever? And so I said, you know, maybe that's going to be the framework I'm going to choose to put my poems in. So I broke down the 3 questions, and I'm going to read the poems in sort of the realm of each of these questions. So who are we? Why do we live? Do we die forever? And I picked out poems that I thought were from my new book, but also from other places that are in that question because they're unanswerable. So I haven't answered them by any means, but I'm willing to sort of share how my poem might be in the question of who are we? And I have 4 poems that I've picked out for this question, being in this question. Who are we? Pinked. May, my eye spies a pink dress, tree bark flaked from its trunk and pinned to the surface of earth as if cut out of paper and placed on her table, a pattern my mother was sewing. Her shears are for pinking. She unrolls inch by inch her tape to squeeze me by my waist and measure, take me to the store. I'm picked among the countless cottoned, blossomed from bolts. I am one here, her only choice. Simplicity is what a pattern calls for. Paper, like the thinnest skin. I'm not skinny like my sisters. She pinches my belly rolls and pats my jiggly butt, becoming a May Day dress, color of sheep sorrel, lady slipper, dogwood as I dance around a pole pinked with sweat, sewing me bark of a tree no other mother makes. And then the title poem from my collection, girl in tree bark is from a picture that I found in some lichen on some bark in the forest. Girl in tree bark. Formed among filaments of parents like lichen, I branched. 6 decades crisper now to myself on the floor, I appear palish green and leaf-like. My dress peels off crusted flakes, giving my girlhood a pretty powder. But having been stamped of mother who moistened and father who anchored me, I'm charting my slippage, fallen bark from our tree on this found map of ground where I must belong, while offspring, my own, crackling our tree, creep beyond me. How will anyone know who I am on my island of end and began? Girl in a forest knows, no two parents are alike, to see a lichen like me again. So this is another Who Am I poem. It's called Psalm for a Body Politic. Thank goodness I am who I am. He cannot make me lie down in his pastures or lead me to be quiet with fear of his rod or his staff when he tricks me along paths for his comfort. I won't drink from still waters he cannot refresh, where surely enemies, my unbelievers, will trouble me night after day. If I own my own dwelling and burn from my one bowl of oil, I'm a lamp. I illumine this table where even my soul. And one more Who Am I poem. Who am I as I change over time and roles? We went to the fair, a first day of fall. Remember our weather? All of us with sugary toddlers, our progeny, our doubles, how we herded them home, winded and heated across that whole sunned meadow where shorn wheat was left rolled into snug bales to be barned before rain. When our parents were still quick, body plus mind, and all our marriages intact. Have you ever felt sun to fall as glee as after that fair? One baby, bowling ball, bald, 2 or 3 towheads, a scrambler, one screamer, and one who ran all time into race. We went to the fair, weathering under our layer of atmosphere, pressure and vapor, sunbeam and grizzle. White silked webs hold fast in stiff grass. On to Bogan's second question she thinks poets ask, the unanswerables. Why do we live? I'm in this question. Where babies come from? One of my children asked me this, and I answered it in this prose poem. How once in a second, my ovary shed a follicle, egg, the very same second your father was kissing me, cocked his head, beat his heart, frisked me up onto his shimmying hips, flinging us twisted all into a whirl, sent my wish dizzying into his seed, a holy explosion of foaming and whiting, tumbled up twisting of rope-like strands, anchoring you in a crystalline shell, spiraling into my womb like a nest, no much fresher than twigs. So by the close of that singular day, you rested to heat all the hours for quickening your fingernails, muscles, and feet. Yes, so you can kick, not to break out. I had to push. Yes, I pushed and you squeezed through the neck, not my neck, more like a canal. You might call it a tunnel. No, it wasn't dark. It wasn't too dark. Well, you closed your eyes, held your breath. Does it hurt? You forgot. I do. I remember you came in waves like an ocean, like pow, pulled me under and whisked me, churned my brains up and frisked me. How is it over? After pant, after gush, after gasp, and earth quaked. Another, why are we here? question. Well, I've been fortunate through the pandemic. The pandemic started when this first grandbaby started, and this first grandbaby lived and has been living with me in all its incarnations from the beginning of the pandemic. Are you ripe, watermelon, fat and fit on the vine growing in our daughter's garden? Seated in spring in the thrum of our furnace room under a luminous light after she fled winter, the first of her marriage. All summer you scrambled. September, here on our soil, she swells dew-skinned and deep, like you, green-bodied. We crave fruitful and wonder, what is the weight, the shape of our ideal? Are you ready for reaping? You're not easy, melon, to fall from your vine. We know with our hands and all senses, your skin has a give, your hold has a heft, your field spot a tell. Turned for your tone, the buttery of your underside. We rap to sound you out. This is a cutting. I have 3 poems about cuttings. This is number 2. This is also done during the pandemic. Why are we here? A cutting. It's no time for a beauty fix in a fussy parlor, the high cost of atmosphere, sealed broth of germy breath. Baby straddling her waist. She asks her father in the easy chair, "Hey, will you cut my hair?" He springs with urgent confidence, fanciful favor granter, god of bricolage. Why shouldn't he believe his daughter's makeover is a dream he can fulfill? My belly froths, I take her blue-eyed baby on my hip. She wears white, sweatshirt, sweatpants. They're risking all right now, no cape or towel. From his desk, he selects brass scissors he uses to open the mail. "Siri," he asks, "how do you cut hair?" Still, our daughter waits on the stool by our living room fire. He pulls his comb root to split ends, aims my houseplant bottle, spritzes her with our well water, employs clips as Siri chirps to isolate each clump, snip, snip. Her locks shush off, the carpet. Boy, watching, keen eyes open, pigment certain, knows exactly who this woman is, no matter how calamitous this could all turn out. Oh, here's a poem I've put in and took out and put in. Okay, so why are we here? I think this poem is, for me, about being a helper in life, professionally and maybe otherwise. Good Samaritan, it's from a dream. It's a poem inspired by a dream. I take the dream for what it is, C.G. Jung. Figment of man curled under a sink, wrist hacked, a razored wound. At this angle of shock, he is headless. First reached by my husband, a hero in every rescue, who shrinks from this gore, is going to faint. My bare hands bear down on raked slits, chalky arm, blood-streamed. Bandages! I am tossed, sheared strips of what's handy. Who am I? No doctor, no nurse, no medicine maker, just fingers fervently applied. Booned by my grit, the dying man on the way of blood lifts up his head, sees outside a daylight. He isn't dead yet. Grins teethfully, like, isn't alive a pleasant surprise after all? He holds no belief I can't save him, yet now uncoiling, his guts snake my lap. I've nothing clean to wrap him. A lullaby rocks from my hush. You are mine, you are mine, you are mine. I think the most paradoxical of these questions that Bogan asks is, that we poets ask, that we live in, these questions we live in, is, do we die forever? Not do we live forever, of course, but do we die forever? So I looked at a poem I hadn't looked at in a long time. I wrote for my mother after her death. It's a prose poem, Beyond. After your dream of dying came true and you were finally all the way gone, they sent us away so your bed could be made for so many others. And I went home to where we used to live, and the house was dark, just as you left it, and there was nothing left to eat. So I went to bed without any supper. But then I heard you popping popcorn, as if you just sent us all to bed at the late of an end of a tiresome day. So I padded down the hall in my flowered nightie, expecting you to be parked in front of the TV. I wasn't expecting you to let me sit on your lap beside the bowl and stuff a bunch of greasy popcorn in my mouth and spit back into your hand. I was expecting butter, not sharp cheddar. You aren't in your chair, and I can smell popcorn but not taste it, and I can sit in your chair but not your lap, and I can watch TV, but I'm trying to picture how happy you must be since your dream of dying came true after serving so much misery, imprisoned every time they took the keys to your car. I can picture where you were heading, but not precisely where you ended up or how you got there from here. And I'm wondering what kind of power a child's wish or a parent's permission holds, what memory matters when there will be no more. On that last night, before you left, while all the others were sleeping and I was listening and you were dreaming, when finally he called to you, his voice breaking some silence from beyond. Was it scolding, tender, merciful? I only asked because I heard you say, what? What, Dad? As if you weren't ill or old or weak or wasted, more like a girl who'd lost track of time, like a daughter answering a call from home, late to dinner, hungry. Did he answer you with words or in the tired, hopeful rush of your last breath? And my last poem in the question, that probably not the last poem I'll write, about do we die forever? Heaven and earth. This is about adolescence. Heaven and earth, how could we have known heaven is watching? We were only teens. Our lusty bodies were making goodbye like this, a piggyback ride to the door. Fresh boy, I look back on our last romp in your father's house, my own father outside honking for me to hurry. Your eyes rimmed in gold glasses. You're almost finished wearing your braces. Doe-eyed, blondish, I'm blinding your sight, my hair swishing across your face, arms crossed to belt your neck, thighs squeezing your bony hips on a slow motion jog up the shag, carpeted steps of your broken split level home, hanging on, till weeks later, the morning after your accident. On the toilet, I stumble, lead-headed from bed, and from up above, where's the ceiling? I sense you hovering, watching me wake up and discover the dead see every body they belonged to in the first day after day after day of departure, changing my underwear or bare-assed in the shower. I'm lashed to your glassless eyes. Heaven hangs no curtain of privacy. You see me sharper, weaker, wholer, and unpretty as hell, but heaven means I have to let you see me pissing like this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I now have the joy of introducing Ruth Smullin. She grew up in inner city and suburban Boston, where she currently lives. Her work has been published in Atlanta Review, Common Ground Review, Constellations, Crucible, where her poem was winner of the Sam Reagan Prize, Ibbotson Street, Naugatuck River Review, Plain Songs, Salzier Poetry Review, The Aurorian, and is forthcoming from Main Street Rag. Her chapbook, The Open Door, was published by Finishing Line Press in 2020. I will put purchasing information of her book in the chat. Please welcome Ruth Smullin.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria Luisa, and thank you, Kelly, for those wonderful poems. I'm grateful to the New England Poetry Club for giving me the opportunity to read from my chapbook today, and I'm especially grateful to all the friends and family who have come to keep me company this afternoon. It means a lot to me. I'll begin with a poem called Class Photo. In preschool, two girls said no and pushed my hands away when I stuck my clay snake onto theirs. So I told Mama, and she let me stay home for the rest of the year, playing marbles on the sidewalk with Ellie and Harvey, cowboys and Indians, sing-song games. I liked going shopping with Grandma, holding her hand when we walked to Blue Hill Avenue for a chicken at the kosher butcher, carrots and celery at the grocer, her newspaper, Der Tag, at the corner store. When Ellie and I went to kindergarten, we had to walk past strange people staring through a fence. And every day, two boys jumped out from behind a porch to follow us. Kiss me, said Ronnie, or I'll put you on a rocket to the moon. I knew that was silly, but I was scared. At school, Ellie and I drew pictures, did puzzles, and played house together. Miss Drown read us stories and never scolded anyone, not even Mona, who ate a crayon and got blue all over her mouth. Perhaps I was daydreaming when our class photo was taken. There I am in the front row with all the other girls, their hands folded on their laps, faces composed. My hands flat, one on each knee, my brow furrowed. Was I worried about how I was sitting or about the walk home? Brushing hair. As a baby, I was bald, hairless till I turned 1. 3 years later, the camera caught me smiling under a mass of messy curls, soon cut to the nape of my neck. I was happy at 9 when I got to let my hair grow long, but I didn't expect the hated brushing. Sitting on the bed, my mother behind me, working slowly, not always patiently, undoing knots of matted hair, teasing them into separate strands, while I said ouch and ouch again. For years, I didn't cut my hair, reveling in its growth, a sun-touched cloak on my back. But when it reached my waist, it grew no more. I wanted hair like Rapunzel's, long enough to reach the ground beneath a high window, thick and strong enough for a prince to climb. I imagined Rapunzel brushing her hair for hours, making it smooth for her lover's soft hands. I imagined myself with that hair, that lover, his hands. Miriam arrives in America. Halloween, 1952. I was 9, dressed as the ballerina I dreamed of becoming. Our newly discovered cousin had just arrived from Paris, beautiful as a princess in the fairy tales I loved. Her story of the war, worse than anything in Grimm's, the camps, potato skin soup, thrilled me. Knowing her made me special. Of her family, she was the only survivor, elegant, smiling, ready, I believed, to live happily ever after. Vertebra. You and I ate chicken necks back then, not because they were cheap, but because we loved their taste, cooked in a soup with thighs and legs, carrot and celery, onion and dill. Sucking soft neck meat from crumbling bone, we found it delicious, the bone's shape fascinating, complicated, So much detail in a vertebra, half an inch high. Cleaned with bleach, set upright on a table, this almost X resembled a person, feet planted firmly, arms raised, a round cavity at the center to hold the cords safe, the spine's strength, its intricate coupling, vertebrae nested against each other. You modeled the neck bone in clay, drew it in ink, carved one from the trunk of a maple, built another of iron pipe, 2 stories high, named it for Daedalus, inventor and artist, who crafted wings of feathers and wax. Legacy. With a fine metal stylus, he drew a landscape, incising the lines into a palette of clay, a mold for plaster that poured, hardened, removed, became the final work, everything in relief. Blades of grass alive, leaves trembling on a tree, ridged bark of the trunk, absence cast into presence as memory transforms our dead. Old letters. In the 70s and 80s, we all wrote letters to stay in touch, especially my mother and his, weekly at least. Friends, sisters, brothers living in other states, a blizzard of words, lives in flux. We were moving, buying houses, looking for jobs, pumping out flooded basements, going back to school, falling in love, deciding to get married, having babies, getting divorced, struggling with demanding children and bosses. We were happier then, angrier, more certain, more unsure. Every word mattered, too important to throw away. I saved every letter. 6 boxes full. It seems crazy now. 5 and dime stationery, lined paper, picture postcards, and plain. As I read, I remember forgotten pleasures, troubles, intimacy absent the person. Did you mean to sound so cold and hostile, my mother writes? Dearests, his mother begins, the phlox is blooming. We're looking forward to your visit. Sarah is growing up at an alarming rate, my now dead friend tells me. She is thin, complicated, and moody. Reading their letters, an act of mourning that sharpens the sense of loss.
Drove it right off the tee. Saw that he had the layup short of the green.
Pomegranate on a white plate, my own still life. Fruit lavish as a rose colors the room, pleases my eye. For weeks I study its odd shape, angles like cheekbones, skin taut with the fullness of what's hidden, the blossom end, a tiny crown. Voluptuous as an odalisque, this pomegranate, my work of art, my eye, the medium. As rosy skin begins to fade and shrivel, I struggle to fix forever the exact shade, the particular form. With my knife, I lay bare the rows of tiny fruit, bright as rubies, bite into crisp flesh, sweet, acid. Yellow, sunflower, goldfinch, goldenrod, yellow jackets on a ripe peach, fat rendered from a chicken in grandma's kitchen. Upstairs, I helped Mama and add yellow drops to margarine so it looked like butter, brushed baby brother's blonde curls. I read my picture book about Dorothy and the yellow brick road, saw gentlemen prefer blondes at the drive-in with my parents, learned about Anne Frank, the yellow star. Later on, I went bananas with Yellow Submarine and Mellow Yellow, drank gin with lemonade, then settled down, planted daffodils, had kids, waited for the school bus, began to see with a jaundiced eye. These days, corn is too yellow, too sweet, watermelon yellow when it should be red, the seeds we love to spit, gone. Before I read my final poem from the book, I'm going to read a couple of newer poems. Like many other people, I wrote pandemic poems, and this is one of them. Falling. As November teeters from sun warmth and sky blue to gloom days of frigid, damp, and bluster, we seesaw in unison, flying high, hitting the ground. Staying well consumes our attention. Signs declaring hope appear on lawns. Are they ordering us to hope? Suggesting hope as an idea to contemplate, as a feeling to hold alongside fear of death by virus? We order takeout, take walks, talk long with friends, family, play music, play games, let minds meander on down days, burrow deep. December arrives, colder, darker, wetter, wind icy, battered signs askew. In the garden, cut stalks blackened by frost, dead blooms crumble into dirt, disappear. The camera's eye, home movies. 4 years old in my two-piece bathing suit, I jump off the wall onto the beach again and again, a big smile every time I land. Rachel and I stand squinting outside my family's cottage, her dark hair in neat braids, my blonde curls a tangled mess. Behind us, my mother hurries by, looking irritated, self-conscious. Nancy, the skinny teenager up the street, waves to the camera, does a backbend, then kicks her lithe legs back over her head to stand triumphant, arms raised, grinning. We're in awe. Late that summer, Mom, Dad, and I swim together, Mom visibly pregnant. I'm crying wildly, grabbing her neck. She pushes my hand away, swims out of frame, while Dad, smiling as I cling to him, cajoles and soothes. I'm a bossy 5-year-old leading younger cousins in Ring Around a Rosie at Grandma's Thanksgiving. My brother, 2 months old, an unforeseen disruptor. Everything changed. And the last poem I will read is the title poem for my book. It references the French painter Pierre Bonnard, who lived from 1867 to 1947, and who is one of my very favorite painters. The Open Door. On a round palette, crusty as earth, Bonnard mixed shades of sunlight, dense profusion of tree and shrub, tangle of leaf and color. Surrounded by gardens, at work in a house where the view expanded every room, he took possession of mimosas, purple sky, orange clouds, the almond tree in flower. In the dining room, an open door frames a path through unruly vegetation to the distant sea. Light floods the table yellow, heats walls to lavender and red. Outdoors, a table in an arbor, white cloth blue in the shade, the meal's remains, wine bottle, apple, coffee cup, the napkin still warm from my lap. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ruth, for the wonderful reading. And before I have the joy of introducing Ann Taylor. This will be after Ann Taylor. I will invite everyone to unmute for a brief second to give all the poets a round of applause so that they can hear the joyful applause that they deserve today. Right?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah. So I have the
To hear
joy.
your work, Ruth,
Yes. So we'll wait.
Kelly.
Thank you. We'll wait for afterwards so that we can celebrate all the poets today. And again, I want to go back to Paul's comment at the beginning, in that, isn't it marvelous that on a Sunday afternoon we have 90 participants on Zoom? You know, this is about the power of poetry, you know, to build community. You know, and as one of my poetry mentors, Laurent Bassola, says, poetry is my church. Ann Taylor is a professor of English at Salem State University in Salem, Massachusetts, where she teaches both literature and writing courses. She has written 2 books on college composition, academic and freelance essays, and a collection of personal essays, Watching Birds, Reflections on the Wing. Her first poetry book, The River Within, won first prize in the 2011 Catholic Poetry Competition at Ravenna Press. A chapbook, Bound Each to Each, was published in 2013. Her most recent collection, published in 2018, Eloise and Abelard, The Exquisite Truth, is based on the 12th century story of their lives. Please welcome Ann Taylor.
Actually, my very most recent book is a book that came out last year called Sortings. The Eloise and Abelard was just before that. Many of the poems in this collection actually are about my mother, who died at age 96 in the year 2016. So I had a long life with her. Okay, this poem is called Homeschooled. Here I refer to a common artist subject, which portrays Saint Anne teaching her daughter Mary to read. And I refer in this poem to de la Tour's version of that same theme. It's called Homeschooled. In Latour's Education of the Virgin, Saint Anne and her daughter Mary are at peace in chiaroscuro candle glow. Anne tilts the print up at just the right angle for Mary to read at ease with one another. The mother waits while the girl bends the light to the book, enchanted by the words. I'm at the kitchen table with my mother, a small shaded lamp illuminating our book. She's helping me to read, not the Bible, but the story of Rowdy, the curious colt who escapes from her corral and runs up a little hill, down a little hill, up a big hill, down a big hill, until her mother brings her home. I memorized Rowdy and loved reciting with my mother the colt's rhythmic rolling, up those hills, then down them, up, then down again. If I could paint, I'd fix that time at my own kitchen table. The light, the story, the book between us, my mother's devotion. This poem is about my first grade class at St. Charles Parochial School in Woburn, Massachusetts. It's called Sister Catherine's First Grade. No running, no skipping, no banging on stairs, no standing on chairs, slamming doors, no shouting, including loud whispering, no hanging out the window even to wave goodbye, no whipping the shades up, no tossing pencils, snapping elastics, no giggles across the aisle. Hers was a full day of no, keeping by herself, the 63 of us grounded, while she tried, yes, to enlighten us along the way. Think of baby Jesus quiet in his manger, she ordered, as we memorized the commandments do nots. We called on Mary, Joseph, the day's saint, sounded out Dick and Jane's backyard adventures, chanted columns of X plus Y, rode waves and spins down the page of Palmer's cursive, near as we ever came to running. At 3 o'clock, she lined us up, index fingers sealing lips shut, and handed us over one by one, out the door, intact. Only now do I hear the extended yes of her sigh. I can't imagine how she did it. I can't imagine. This poem is about my father, who was an avid weekend fisherman, and I frequently went with him. It's called On the Town Pier. Better when they're moving, Dad always said, as I dug in, fingered night crawlers out of sawdust, I was eager to learn skewering without killing. Sundays on this granite pier cutting into the Atlantic, I ripped hooks out of fins, mouths, eyes, slammed his catch onto stone, nails gritty, hands sticky with the slithering. I loved the wide sequence of church spires across the bay, but most the arc of his eagle claw rod, his smooth cast, the whir of the reel, the thumbs up when he caught me watching. Today I return to the pier to hear the ripple of church bells in the distance, syncopated by the wind, to find the glitter in the granite. I miss him so at ease on those rocks. With nimble fingers, I help a lobsterman untangle an early mockingbird nest twined among his stacked traps. Tough, isn't it, he says, when they get so deep inside. Okay, get the right page here. This is one of a set of poems about my mother. This one is called Still Life. All my years growing up, she was the one to awaken the house. Into her 90s, she was dressed by sunrise for daily mass. She rarely stopped, filling her later years with younger friends, the thrift shop, altar flowers, Sunday school, music theater, zoos with her grandchildren, home-baked Danish, and her favorite mermaid slot at Foxwoods. I often wondered if she ever slept, until today as I approach her, undeniably at rest, in her embroidered blouse, cascades of flowers embracing her. She looks so at peace, they say, so pretty, but she and I resist this still life. I expect her to rise up, command, let's get out of here. Cut flowers always remind me of funerals. She may well have said that. And this poem is a part of this little set in the middle of the book. This is about sorting through her belongings after she died. It's called Sorting. It's written in kind of alternating couplets. One set of couplets is what I'm actually doing, the task at hand, and the other is thoughts as I kind of pull away from performing this activity. Sorting. The outrageous orange sweater I bought to cheer her up. The dark blue fleece she ordered for herself. At the pond, the leaves spin their annual color wheel, the chill wind today setting them off. I must stay here. Fading slides of all of us in the backyard, at Christmas, and with Las Vegas neon, Old Faithful, Bad Lads Barons. A frame photo of herself, patient while I shot a double view. She reflected exactly on the pond's smooth surface. A friend's advice, see all of this as sharing her with others. But I don't. I expect her to walk in at any time. I hoard. Bound for the pond, noisy Canada geese fly over her roof. She'd notice them, and she'd notice what I've been dismissing. A box of Hummels, empty holy water bottles, funeral prayer cards, an atomic alarm clock I gave her for blasting her awake. I wonder how long the young swans trail their mothers. If they ever revisit their frozen nests, claim them. I keep 3 teacups with matching saucers, Belique, Waterford, English bone. I don't drink tea. Okay, this one is far away. It's about a safari that my husband and I went on at Masai Mara in Kenya. We rented our own Jeep and made our own tour. I was driving this particular day. Masai Mara bull. Annoyed, his head lowers, horns and brow plate set for ramming our Jeep, stupidly stopped in the stream bed. Like toros I've seen in the ring, he snorts, grinds the ground with angry hooves, ripples his whole body into a charge. In 90s heat, my bones chill. I fear he'll flip us sideways downstream to the lions. Shaking, I ram the shift into first, whirl tires into yellow spray of gravel, mud, and dust. I blast the horn as he steps toward us. The Jeep guns from the gully delivers us to where I dare look back. Oxpeckers on his brow, he reminds me of bulls garlanded for ritual sacrifice, bloody gifts to greedy gods. His snort, his urge to overthrow us, his deep-driven millennia of grievance, his long, long wrath. Okay. This poem, it comes out of my experience as a graduate student in English at BU, where I spent the days at Chaucer seminars and writing papers on Alexander Pope and Virginia Woolf and all of the English major assignments. And at night, we would go down Commonwealth Avenue to Park Square to the Hillbilly Ranch, where for 18 years, the Lilly Brothers and Don Stover, their banjo player, brought bluegrass to Boston, and other country music singers, came through regularly. We got to know several of them. This one is called Hillbilly Nights. A 6-foot-high serpentine glide across the ranch dance floor, a party of one. We named him Slim. While Ebb's mandolin, B's Pearly Martin, and Don's tattling banjo brought Rocky Top's cruel minds and Bayou babes to Boston, we downed pitchers of chilled Schlitz, dined on popcorn at tables draped in red check, learned the words. Corinna in cowgirl fringe, white 10-gallon, nightly warbled the HELL of her DIVORCE. The on-leave sailor slurred, "Hey, honey, how about a kiss?" And the natty suit from the office toasted the aromatic street exile in mothy coat and torn shoes. All had a tale to tell. So saints and sinners all, we marched nightly, rode the rails, gunned the woods, got jailed, passed time with Sadie, Nellie, Catfish John, mule skinners, cheating hearts, and hobos. Got ready for our judgment day. That was fun. And I'll read a couple of poems not in the book. One of them was written about April 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And in this poem, it is an envy of the birds, actually. It's called Around the Pond, April 2020. At the pond, I veer an arc as a masked hiker passes, arms extended wide to assure empty space around him. Less off-putting with one another, early redwings gather among the cattails, sing, await the whole breeding flock. Old Sam Peabody sparrows convene in the mulberry bush, and from a low pine branch, the usually silent who cooks for you owl invites an approach. A solo snapper crowds in for sunning on an already well-turtled log, while whole companies of migrating geese descend, then honk an immediate group departure, driven off by one cranky swan, wings slapping the surface into a foam. Except for the swan, who relishes all stay-away orders, there's not much distancing. Turtles line up, birds travel without license, congregate promiscuously, chorus openly, call for company. On my walk, I glimpse from the lagoon bridge the elusive wood duck, a painter's palette of color emerging briefly from the reeds, but must resist my urge to summon other walkers in close to view with me this singular delight. And this last one actually is somewhat about, I don't know if many of you probably are aware that Billy Collins, every weekday since last March, since the beginning of the pandemic, has been reading poems, his own poems, other people's poems, talking about poetry in his English professor's way, every weekday at 5:30. And I've been faithfully attending this. It's been cut back now to 2 days a week, to Tuesday, Thursday, but I'm still attending. During this time, hundreds of people from around the world would be gathered to hear him and discussing poetry. In this poem itself, I mentioned a couple of his poems. One is The Lanyard. I think both of them are very funny. One of them is The Lanyard, you may know, where he he talks about the fact that his mother gave him life. She taught him to walk and to swim. She raised him. And in return, a perfectly even balance, he gave her a lanyard that he had woven at summer camp. So he thought it was an even trade. And the other poem is Schoolsville, where he, as it imagines, all of his students gathered together in the same town, which is a wonderful fantasy, actually. Another idea in the poem, frequently he's asked, why do people write poetry? And one of his standard answers is that poets write to compete with one another, to try to outdo one another. There's that challenge of competition. So that's the beginning of the poem. Poets write to compete, Billy says, their creativity propelled by envy of other poets. I admit I have considered writing a lanyard poem about my useless gifts to my mother. And I've debated inviting into a poem certain students timed wide apart over my classroom years and still residing in my own Schoolsville. But what propels my envy these days is the love he receives for his pandemic poetry broadcasts, faithfully watched by me. The Give It To Us, Billy, we're all yours, love. The You Are the Highlight of My Day, love. These are comments, by the way, that appear in the chat. Oh, I have my praises and my loyal fans' occasional great class gratitude in an email, but none of the worldwide adoration I would prefer. He makes a passing joke about odes or marriage or household mold, and a "You Are So Hilarious" choruses through cyberspace. He explicates the red wheelbarrow or the flea and stirs wonderment as if he had single-handedly decoded the Rosetta Stone. I get to feel like a graduate student again, gushes one. As my dreaded retirement looms, I envy his chance to go on teaching to hundreds of readers that stanza means room, that iambic pentameter is an English beat, that Whitman's railroads were a stretch. He gets to remain professorial, assigning favorite poems, old, new, others his own, unfolding their delights, transitioning from yesterday's session with a provocative "as we remember." Oh, if only a very large number of poetry lovers would someday feel compelled to announce to me, your words are our balm, or you are our bright beacon of hope, or even love your t-shirt. Thank you.
Okay, so what I would like to invite everyone to do is to please, let's give today's featured poets an unmuted round of applause. So unmute yourselves, let's go.
Good job.
What a joy, what a joy. Right. So Kelly DuMar, Kelly DuMar set the tone for not only her reading, but for the readings by Ruth Smullin and Ann Taylor, where she referred to the poet Louise Bogan's three overarching questions: who we are, why do we live, do we die forever? Their poetry readings today affirm that we will remember them. We will remember you. We marveled at affinities across all three poets of the power of light, poems about childhood, the constellation of the cultural artifacts of your knowing, of your life, of being mothered and mothering, and the ongoing legacy of dear ones who passed. Thank you all again. And before we go to the open mic, we would love to, as part of the New England Poetry Club, we would like to remind you to check out our website. You know, Tony B is offering a workshop next Sunday. It'll be wonderful to see many of the faces here, there. So I'm going to turn it over now to the open mic portion to Linda Conte. Thank you again.
Thank you, Maria Luisa. Hi, everyone. Yeah, we got.
Linda, you're muted.
You're muted now.
Sorry, Linda, that was my fault. If everybody
if everybody who's not Linda would please mute yourself, and then I won't accidentally mute Linda.
So we have more than 12, so a couple of people I do have to ask to come back next time. I'll tell you so you know, Paul Smith and Stephen Honig. And let's please begin with Katie Kearns. Please unmute yourself and read for us one poem.
Hi, I'm Kate Kearns. I'm up in Maine. And this is called Blessing the Garden. Dear dirty obligation, I set out to bless you. Your litany of words green for the tending, those quiet minutes mist sizzling from the spigot. You show the neighbors I give a shit. Roses flaunt last year's pruning while grateful words churn rot. Grateful worms churn rot to flourishing. Broccoli popsicles with their dinner plate leaves have spoiled me and my loved ones with earthy delights and ruined their frozen brothers. I meant to love the work of you the way a poet should. Brutal beet and carrot plume, I don't need you to teach me patience. I have a sturdy root. Mom lushed our apartment windows with succulents and green ponytails. Dad named his plants, lit them from below to snake shadows up his walls. You're the first ground I've owned. Roma tomatoes, their sweet grass tang belong not to this, but to my childhood yard, to the Italian landlords who edged the property with beds and once a year filled bins and bins with fleshy red, blanched and peeled, performed their marinara ritual. I watched them, the way attention so predictably brought seedling to vine to pulpy heirlooms year after year. Listen, I'm still out here, feet wet with soil. I'm trying to love you. It'd be so easy to love you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good weather for knocking around in the garden. Next up, please, David Miller.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Kelly and Anne, and all three of you are terrible. I just blanked out, but I know who you are, and thank you very much, all of our readers. So this is brief. A hover of discs. Ruth, that's the third one. Kelly, Anne, Ruth. Okay, good. Now I feel better. Here's the poem. A hover of discs. Here's the rewind, the reset. Where is that kid? I unshelve, then release a covey of vinyl on the revived turntable. Renew the voices inside the boy beneath this skin. The needle voices deep down in the grooves, that rewired kid. He's been distracted so long. I lift him from vinyl. My oldest tethers are sounds popped from vinyl, ears overloaded, surface scratch decorated voices. His nerve-racing music silent, so long, that kid's. Oh, kid, those wild lands of vinyl, voices spun back to you.
Thank you, David. Next, we have Scudder Parker. After him, get ready, David Wyman.
Hello. I'm reading from a book that was released in June, and like a number of our books, is a COVID baby. So this is called Davy Road. A man in clothes the shape of sleep pushes his battered bicycle, wire baskets front and back, halfway up the drive, and stops. He watches me raking gravel. You live here now? I pause, lean on my rake. I'm trying. We gossip like old neighbors. His family logged pine and maple, a few cows and chickens. Some summers a bear got all the corn. I tell him a bear got ours last summer. The house and barn were down there where you have your wood pile now. The house was small and cold as hell. The barn was built better. We go down, explore lilac, sprawling roses, honeysuckle, clumps of double daffodils, stacked granite slabs that held the barn. No sign of the house foundation. 5 generations in this place, and I 3 years. Twice since then, I've seen him picking up empties. Once, just his bike, leaning against a tree. Thank you.
Thank you, Scudder. Next, we have David Wyman. After him, get ready, Tom Daly.
Thank you. I'm going to read a poem called A Guest of the Internationals. This is in my second book. It's called Violent Ideologies. Most of the poetry in this book is concerned with the idea that in place of a culture, what we have is capitalism. And this poem is concerned with the effect that capitalism has on the lyric self. A Guest of the Internationals. In a dream called A Guest of the Internationals, my ideal house appears on a green hillside on an island. It's white, eco-friendly, brimming with natural light. But when I go out in the world, everything presents itself at once. Everything is displayed as if it were all on sale. Turns out, materialism restores dignity and intellectual integrity with easy to perform sublime mysteries, though it can take the form of a spiritual consumerism tailored to one's own unhealthy individualism in a false autonomy. So, if we really are out to monetize the revolution, to move away from familiar safe text toward innovative writing, a critical and exploratory poetics driven by the innovation that marks private enterprise, then what? Partially dissolved, exhausted, but doesn't all text feel manipulated? In a lucid dream, we could redirect the action. Today, we're moved along wide interstellar intervals, proper nouns. Invisible like the silent bee in debt, it begins, sleep or trance. As a time comes to sweep away the dust, the individual granules of crushed stone that make up the moments of our attention, till it strays off target again, like 19th century prose. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Next, we have Tom Daly, and after him, Sarah Backer. Get ready.
Thanks to the 3 readers, to Kelly and Ruth and Anne for a really terrific reading, and also thanks to New England Poetry Club for making these events possible. Tell me where he soaps. Tell me where he soaps his magic, where he pelts his name with the lymph that slides with the squid ink from his gallbladder to the trapeze of his pectorals and deltoids. Think about the scars glimmering from his glare, how he is more random than a phantom gnarled from the headlines, how he is a ticket to the muzzle where the grasshoppers still chew the future in a perfect rupture of the pleasing day. Tell me why the red whip of his tease feels like a dead fledgling in my palms. Tell me more, wretch of hope, how someday I might wear his stopwatch on my left ankle, his oil-sprayed t-shirt over my ears. Give me the knife, and I will silence all the treacherous dangles from our breaths that cannot mingle.
Thank you, Tom. Sarah Backer's coming up, and after her, David Donna.
I'm going to read a poem that was just published in the magical magazine, Irish journal Crannog, Waves. What made the tide that sprang last March knock out the first of 2 posts of the pier dug deep in sand? My father's death reopened investigation of our disappointment. Two waning tides responding to withdrawal by withdrawing. Our distant conversations, his rain, my snow. I never mentioned cancer, nor did he. He was an engineer who liked neat and precise, yet he approved of oceans. He died on a remote shore, ashes poured into Pacific waves. So many ways to scavenge a beach, so many interpretations of broken sand dollars, beer cans, agates, kelp. The beach is vast, inconstant, inconsistent, every visit different. Gritty wind, blinding sparkle, stoic barnacles, grasping anemone. The tide draws lines in the sand and crosses them over and over, herding minnows into shallow surf, slapping pilings in the chthonic underworld beneath the battered, tilted dock that still stands, a useful landing for a hungry gull.
Thank you, Sarah. Next is David Donna, and after him, Barbara Jenis.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to all the readers and to the NEPC. With certain clouds starting to lift, I've been thinking with a kind of sour nostalgia about last winter, and this poem is from then. Blessings by text message. My friends, I would blister my hands opening the red-hot window to float this filigree of well wishes towards you, to adorn your nests. Insubstantial as protection, I regret, but tell me if it catches some still gentle light with you when it comes to rest. I miss you all. These separate days each stretch high tension wires along the streets between our apartments buzz the loudest sound outside. We'll feel this in the quiet at the backs of our thighs a while yet. Whoever's eyes remain with mine on this, send word or send whatever's left.
Thank you, David. Beautiful. Next is Barbara Jenis, and after her, Thomas DeFreitas.
Hi, everybody. This is my first time attending. I'm new to the group, and wow, it's just a great start. I loved Kelly, Ruth, and Ann's work, and all the open mic readers as well. This is a poem that's going to appear in the next issue of Frost Meadow Review. It's called Cloven. The hunter made himself known at dawn. 6 quick shots, a pause, then 2 more. So close, the shockwaves hammered the glass of the window over my head. I rose with a curse, sure of the target, a young buck, 8-pointer, regular sight at the periphery of our lives this past summer, calm-eyed, curious about the way of our world. We'd look up and see him in the late afternoon's oblique light just beyond the farthest fringe of lawn. He also visited at night, purging my gardens of yellow daylilies and purple coneflowers, spurning the orange impatience I'd planted as a ruse. Alerted by instinct of hunting season's approach, he disappeared when only Joe Pye and Rudbeckia bloomed and the leaves began to turn. My husband saw him just 2 days ago, standing at the edge of the woods behind our house, eyes alert, as if weighing which bore greater risk, the known danger behind him or the unknown ones ahead. This morning, he had his answer. And while I mourned over coffee alone at a cold table, choking the urge to charge into the woods, angry and ungroomed, to confront the shooter whose final 2 shots spoke with such conceit, I saw how the world is divided into halves, hunter or hunted, devoured or disdained, but cloven for a reason, like the perfect hooves of deer. Thank you.
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Barb. Next, after Thomas DeFreitas is Virginia Crawford. Tom?
Good afternoon, all. Thanks to everyone who made this beautiful afternoon of poetry possible. I have a poet friend in Milwaukee whose name is Elena Johnson. I've written some poems, letters in verse to her. This is 73rd letter to Elena. The flare and flamboyance of this New England October will diminish to a brittle cipher, will petrify to cold severity, will harden into doctrine, bitter, stiff. A year of losses it has been, intimate deaths, sundered loves, faith punch-drunk and tottering. Who can bear this cacophony, riot of grief and grudge, stifled cry of thwarted aspirations, collapse of dreams held dear? Winter decrees, you will know dark days, you will endure the mortal agony of cherished hopes. Amid the wreckage of your consolation, you will learn to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next, we have Virginia Crawford, and after her, Alan Smith Soto.
Hi, thank you. It's been a really wonderful afternoon. I just want to share one poem from my new book that's just out, Questions for Water. This one is called The Other Side of the World. When we wake, it is evening there. We smell coffee and move in its direction. They have already done their dinner dishes. We make lists, they count accomplishments. Day is nearly done with them. Kites that might have been flown. Children who learn to crawl or walk or read have done so. Their parents are thrilled and terrified today and for years to come. Dishes that were to be dropped have shattered and been swept away. Those who were to leave us have done so. Families mourn or will soon. All of us cool as the sun goes down. Birds, fire, or the grave wait for what is left.
Thank you, Virginia. So next, Alan Smith Soto, and last but not least, Michael Igoe will come after.
Thank you to the New England Poetry Club for this wonderful venue, this wonderful place to meet. Thank you to the poets for sharing their voices and their lives with us. This poem is called Ferry Boat Dialogue. How dare you sing the rose at times like these? Hate opens flesh and breaks a heart in two. The world is wounded by a cruel disease while privilege increases for the few. A million flee a hell they did not make and take to sea and die under its rage. Others hunger as they devour their cake with the same hands they use to grip their cage. I sing the rose because we are the rose. I sing what has been torn and not the tear. The stuff of stars that brings two lovers close. Our core of earth, the very earth we share. The rose has not been vanquished by the storm. The petals ravaged, there remains the thorn.
Thank you, Alan. Beautiful. Michael Igoe. Did I say that right, Michael? Oh, you got to unmute yourself.
I'm Michael Igo, and I want to read a poem that was recently published in Dream Noir Art and also in a online magazine called Ephemeral Elegies. This poem is called What the Blue Teenager Sold You. What the blue teenager sold will leave you high and dry, more priceless than a loan, in the memory of an evil meal, and your handcrafted tattoos, something that amounts to the ceaseless rain. By sleight of hand, the blue teenager sold you a cause for wonder, a good luck charm for loitering in hallways, pursuing your thunder on whitewashed walls. You brag about routines, the score is settled, the matter's finished. You grow tired of your own disguise. You have a notion of everybody's area, the lush park expanse, the neon pizza signs. I can gauge your walk as a pacer's gait you learned long ago. A blue teenager sold you a never-loving silent night with the music he sighs. If he creases your head, he could sell you more, all you ever knew in the way of a destiny. A pair of sticks are crossed, glowing on the exit door. They're aggravating. And what's more, what the dial light says is luminous and green. You dial the last number in the shadows, an unknown number scrawled on the wall. Thank you.
Oops. Thank you, everyone. That's it for the open mic. Maria Luisa, you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Thank you again, everyone, for the joy of your presence this afternoon. And what I put in the chat is next Sunday's event with Tony B. But with that said, thank you so much for the gift of your time. And I look forward to welcoming you next month. I may not be the host, but somebody will be. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.